Gamers, today we'll be talking about the fourth and final Master Challenge for Crota's End in order to unlock the Swordbearer title. The challenge for this week, and this is October 10th to the 17th, just to clear it up, is the All-for-One challenge, which is the Crota boss encounter itself. The challenge requirement for this is pretty straightforward. You must down Crota and his shield in one attempt. So you need to take his shield down from 100 to 0 in one attempt, otherwise it's a challenge fail. Now the concept for this itself isn't particularly hard, it just means that you need to have multiple sword bearers ready to slam Crota at the same time. Quick note about this, technically speaking, 2 sword bearers can down Crota in one go, however the damage with 2 swords seems to just be inconsistent even since day 1, with both people landing all their attacks but the damage just not being there properly. So for the sake of safety and 100% certainty, I will be recommending that people actually get 3 Enlightened Swordbearer swords for Crota's shield. This means that you'll be cycling the chalice for 4 times in total per phase, 3 Enlightened, and then 1 for the Oversoul Stun. Before that, let's talk about the encounter itself. Not much changes from normal to Master, aside from being negative 20 power. You will also have to deal with unstoppable ogres here instead of regular ones every time you take down the 4 Boomer Knights in the towers to summon the Swordbearer. Because of this, you should have several teammates on a fusion rifle just to stun the unstops immediately as they come out. Now, as for Crota, I personally think that for most people, the real challenge will be actually just staying alive and doing proper damage to Crota without wasting a bunch of revives and dying before or even during the damage phases. Remember, this is Master, so you're at negative 20, so unless you're playing it with a cracked squad, you'll be doing a 2-phase or a 3-phase here. Because of this, I'll be going over a few strats here, some for the optimized damage, but more on the risky side, and then others that are less optimized for damage, but extremely safe from Crota and just dying overall. To quickly cover the challenge portion here, simply pass the chalice around and have the player with the Enlightened buff pick up the sword, and then just hold it until player 2 and player 3 get their swords respectively. Quick note here, the sword bearers that do get the sword should help out with dealing with the new Boomer Knights that spawn in the towers when they come out, so you can get the next sword spawn very quickly. Just remember that as long as you or someone else breaks the arc shield on the Boomer Knights, your heavy slam from your sword can permanently stagger them until they're dead. So just do this until you have 3 swords and an Oversoul Stunner ready to go, and then it's time for the damage phase setup. Before I talk about what classes to bring, we need to talk about the DPS strategies for this first. So we'll go over the risky but optimized strat first, and then the much safer but less damage-oriented strat afterwards. So the strat that most people are going to be trying to do, because it's been what is working on normal mode, is the sword damage strategy, and in a nutshell, people gather up on Crota, stun him, and then go to town on him with swords with the Well of Radiance, and sword is the meta here with, like, Bequest with Surrounded, or Gold Tusk with Whirlwind for Arc Surge, Lament or Caretaker for Solar Surge, and then Falling Guillotine or Death's Razor on Void Surge. Additionally, while technically not a sword, for sword strategies, you can have at least 1 Titan using Banner of War in order to pump up the sword damage for your team, as well as using Tractor Cannon as a team debuff, so you don't force your hunters to be on tether, and then Banner of War itself can still pump up huge damage on its own via the melees and the super while providing said tractor. Now, while the sword meta is the best option to go with in terms of raw damage, on Master Crota, it's going to come down to just how risky do you want to play it. For example, on Master, Crota can easily destroy your well, and then 2-shot your fire team, or even 1-shot you if they don't have the proper mods on, or maybe you got hit by something like a hive boomer across the map. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, the real challenge here for Crota will be putting up the damage while not taking too many risks and people dying. To combat this, we have a few options. First, bring a bunch of well warlocks, at least 2 of them, and then be ready to pop that second well in the event that Crota destroys the first, which happens all the time. Speaking of which, the first well, you should be landing it straight on Crota's head after he's down from the Swordbearer. This helps ensure that the well is technically airborne, and hopefully Crota can't destroy it anymore. Second, if you're using the sword strat, if you want to simplify things and not risk deaths, there's 2 major things that you can do to help with this. First, right before the damage phase, have everyone run to the back where the crystal room is, and once you do, Crota's AI will shift to just running straight at you. This allows you to get away from any hive boomers that may be up or may spawn in, and you'll be fighting Crota by himself. Second, bring in a Burning Maul Titan with you. Just standard Burning Maul, not Pyrogale. The reason for this is Burning Maul can keep Crota permanently staggered in one place for the entire duration of your super. This by itself helps survivability because, well, this idiot's just going to be stun locked the entire time. However, it is worth noting that this does not work for Crota in Final Stand, where he goes berserk. So at that point, you could put on Pyrogale instead and just get a nice chunk of damage out. The only real downside to this sword strategy is that you can't proc Surrounded on your swords while you're in the back, so you can choose to either go for a safer sword damage phase here, or you can try to line up Crota on one of the bridge ends so that there are enemies under you, and you can proc surround it for that additional 41% damage boost. And if your team is experienced and is up for it, try to do the surrounded sword strat. But if you're new to the game, or you're helping people, or you're just inexperienced and not confident yet, then just head to the back for more safety. It's worth noting that if it's Solar Surge, which it will be for the first week that this video is out, and you choose the sword as your form of DPS, just baby aggro Crota to the back like we mentioned, and do DPS from there with Lament. It's not the best, it's not Bequest Crackhead damage, but it is Solar, and it's Solar Surge, and it gives you some healing, so it's just an easy choice to make. The only times you should be going for surrounded sword damage is on Arc or Void Surge with Bequest, Flash, Falling Guillotine, or Death's Razor, respectively. Okay, enough about sword spam. Alright, let's